Hey, Lachelle again. And I am just so excited that you have taken the time to submit all of your things that I need to run your AO scan report. And I'm really excited to take a couple of minutes here and give you a very basic overview of what it is that you're looking at and how you can make some sense of it. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we are going to walk through the email that you should be getting. So here we are. Okay, so when you get a report from the email, it will say something like easy scan report and then the date that I ran it. Okay, so that's what you're going to look for in your inbox. And when you get that, I'm going to point out a couple of things here. This is going to be the link that you're going to use to listen to your music. And this is going to be all of the things that you need to know for in-depth information around the reporting. Okay, I'm going to tell you honestly that I focus more on this link than I do all of these pieces of information, but I wanted you to make sure that you knew that it was there. So when I click on these various things down here, these are going to tell you a brief overview of exactly what the voice analysis or the inner voice report means, how it works, and how the algorithm was able to essentially tell you where in your body you are having a heightened response to certain emotions or overexpressing certain emotions, and where in your body you are likely repressing a major emotion that has been likely stuck there for greater than 2 years. So when you took the time to send your voice message to me, I had you think about something that made you happy and something that made you sad. When you thought about something that made you sad, I am guessing that if you thought about it or tried that again, you would actually notice that you felt that emotion somewhere in your body. Oftentimes people tell me they feel it in their gut or in their chest or in their throat. Sometimes it's even in your shoulders. And so I want to ask you, when you think about something that makes you sad, where do you feel it in your body? Now that is a indication that we have certain emotions that are being stored in the memory of our cells. And that is why this is so important and so helpful for us to be able to live out our best life. Okay. Now, this is going to give you a nice little just overview of exactly what that technology is. And then you're going to get 4 reports that have a little human body that you can see here. Okay. The 3 first reports that you get are all going to be indicating the emotion that you are likely experiencing the most heightened sense right now or at the time that you recorded the message to me. Okay. So sometimes there's a little delay because I get so inundated with these that it takes me a little bit to get through all of them. So thinking about when you sent that, does this make sense? Okay. Now, the very last one is the one that we've likely repressed or been holding down for greater than 2 years. And I'm going to go ahead and bring mine up so that I can show you what it looks like and, honestly, be a little bit vulnerable. Now, just to note, guys, that they don't save any of this information in their database, so it's very secure, nor do I get to see it. So this goes directly to you and I can't see it. So if you want me to see your report, you have to email it back to me and then I'm happy to read it with you. Okay. Now, what this tells me is that I have been dealing with or repressing the self-critical versus self-accepting emotions for a really long time. And this is very accurate for me. And I noticed that this is something that has been sitting kind of in my subconscious for a long time and I couldn't quite get past it. Now, this does not mean that I am either being extra self-critical or super self-accepting. What this is telling me is that somewhere in the range of these 2 emotions, I am stuck. Okay. And so when we are stuck somewhere in the range of these 2 emotions, we can see some things that start to show up. Okay. So for example, if I bring this in a little bit, you can see that what I would likely have in my life if I were to have a better balance between these 2 emotions is I would be experiencing more self-acceptance. I would have a restoration in my sense of self. I would have the ability to express my feelings to others in a healthy way. I would be able to connect more deeply to others and I would have an easier time forming rewarding relationships. But because of an imbalance between these 2 emotions, I'm likely experiencing things such as self-critical behavior. Am I act timid and reserved? Even when I'm having, sorry guys, having opinions to share. So I just really have a hard time like bringing those up. It might be resulting from abuse, fear of being rejected, or any other situation that involves overwhelming emotions. Definitely can relate to that, and might identify and experience emotions through others or might identify and experience emotions through others or entertainment. So this is where I'm just like seeking out things. Okay. So when I look at this, this tells me that this is likely, very accurate as far as what I'm seeing in myself now. And this is what I can achieve if I listen to the music that it has prescribed to me in the link that I'm going to show you guys. Okay. The other thing that's really fascinating, and I'm going to give you a very basic overview of this, and we can get more into this if you want to meet, but there are also other balancing colors that can help to balance out these two emotions, which is why it's prescribing purple. And it's also telling me that there might be other things that are causing these emotions to get stuck inside of my body, such as viruses that I've been able to be exposed to, or even some food that I've eaten. But most likely, they are very highly linked to the emotions. Up to 80% of diseases or in in basically not ideal states in our body can be linked back to emotions. It also tells me inside of this report, which is really cool, are some things and suggestions that they have for me to actually improve my health and wellness, such as increasing posture and the quality of my pillow, for example, drinking plenty of water, and doing things like that. So this is kind of cool. So you get a chance to open each one of those things. Okay. Now, I also am going to just at least allow you to see that these things exist. But again, I typically don't focus a lot of time on these things. I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to open one up. Now, the vitals report is as if you had a blood or urine test, and the comprehensive report is as if you had an MRI. How in the heck does it tell us this? What it's telling us is that when we submitted our 10-second voice clip, it analyzed all of that amongst 2,000 different frequencies. And it's basically able to tell us where our body is optimizing its way as far as the way that it's vibrating the way that it's supposed to, and each cell in our body is vibrating the way that it's supposed to, or if it's out of balance. Okay. And again, this is a very, very brief overview of this, but what I want to point out is that things can change on a moment by moment basis. It depends on our current emotional state. It depends on, who we're around and the environment and the energy that we're surrounded with. It's impacted by what we've eaten. It's impacted by all kinds of things. And so these can change on a moment to moment basis. So whenever I tell people when they're opening up in any of these reports, I want you to just be aware that I don't concentrate or get worried or worked up about anything in this report. What I would love for you to do is have a series of reports that we can at least look at 5 reports consecutively to see if there's anything that's continuing to show up versus just a one-off. Okay. What do I mean by that? Oh, it's opening it. Okay. Okay, so this is an example of mine. Sorry, I have a little tickle in my throat. So this thing is very, very detailed, and it's going to show up with things that are even before you would see something from a doctor's office. It's quite very sensitive. Now you're going to see a lot of different categories in here, from the blood to everything from the GI, different enzymes, to I can show you some allergies if I've been exposed to funguses or heavy metals, molds, parasites in our food, and viruses. And one of the things that I wanted to point out when you look at this is you're going to notice a previous and a current column. And you might be wondering, like, why are there two if I've only done one of these? And this is why. When the scanner scans your body with your voice analysis for the first time, what it's doing is it's taking the vibrations of all of the different parts inside of your body, and it's comparing it to what we call blueprint frequencies. So scientists over the last 30 years have developed a blueprint guide that tells us exactly what a cell should be vibrating at. So for example, the human pancreas should be vibrating at such and such a frequency, such and such a hertz. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, old or young, the human pancreas should vibrate at such and such hertz. Okay. If your cells are vibrating outside of the norm, it's going to show us that. And that's what it's telling us. So 5 is actually normal or neutral or in harmony with where we want it. And then as you deviate out from 5, that's when you're starting to see that your body is not vibrating in these particular areas like they're supposed to. Okay. The further you get away from 5, the more concerning the thing is, and then therefore the color is going to be red. Okay. Now, I also want to point out a couple of things here. One of them is that 9 is typically going to show something that's more acute and is representative of a bigger inflammatory response, okay? Whereas a 1 is going to be indicative more of a chronic issue in which your cells are vibrating slower than what they're supposed to, and it's likely they are just diminishing in their function and not vibrating as fast as they're supposed to. So it's more of a chronic thing versus a 9 is more of an acute inflammatory process, okay? Now, going back to why is there a previous and a current column? When you were initially scanned, your body gave us this indication of how they are in comparison to the blueprint frequencies. Then what it did was it took that and it allowed for it to be able to compare it to what it's supposed to and allow it for it to come back into normal. Okay, so let me give you an example of this. If you've ever seen a tuning fork, you likely will notice that if you hold the tuning fork and you bang it on the table, it's going to create a pitch. That's the frequency of the tuning fork. Okay, now this is an interesting experiment and I can show you a YouTube video if you want to see it. But if I were to have a tuning fork in both hands and I bang one on the table, the second one is actually going to start to sound at the same pitch as the one that I banged on the table because of resonant frequency. It's going to literally pick up the frequency of the tuning fork right next to it. That's what happens with our machine, and that's called optimization. So what it did was it scanned you initially, which is a previous scan, and then it sent your body very subtle resonant frequencies that are helping it to go back into balance, such as the 2 tuning forks. And the current column is after it optimized. And what you should see when you go through this is more green or less red on the left column after it optimized. And this is what I'm seeing as well, because it is actually helping your body to perform at a better functioning because it's helping to bring your frequencies back into balance. Okay. Now, you'll also sometimes will notice, and I'm going to give you an example here where something actually got in quote unquote worse, right? So it was let's see, this one was an 8 and it went to a 9. So technically we want it to get closer to 5, right? So you might be wondering, like, Lachelle, why would it be getting worse in some areas after it optimized? And the reason is that everything is, number one, prioritized. So the algorithm, when it's helping to shift your energy, it's picking the things that need to be addressed first, and it's choosing to send energy and the shifting resonant energy to the things that it really needs. And so sometimes that happens. And also there's a little bit of a domino effect. So if I correct one area, it might impact another area that's less significant or important. And so that's something that you should know. Now, the other thing that I get asked a lot is, Lachelle, why in the world is it showing me that I have been, have certain things in my body that are not, anything that I would expect? I'm trying to pull up one for you as an example here. So let's just say, smoke. Let's just say that I'm not a smoker. Okay. So you might have been around somebody that smokes, or you might very well have cellular memory. So just like when you felt that emotion in your chest, perhaps when you gave me your negative emotion, your body actually has cellular memory. Now, which is really cool is that the more that I allow my machine to optimize my body, the more I'm able to reprogram that memory so that it no longer hangs on to things. But for example, when I grew up, my mom was a smoker. My dad smoked for part of my childhood. So I still have cells inside of my body that hold on to the memory of that, and therefore will even be picked up here. Another example is I've had people that I've done scans for that said, oh my goodness, like, why is it showing that I have parasites? Now that might be a couple of reasons. Number one, you might have just eaten something at the grocery store that had trace amounts of parasites in it and you didn't even realize it. Meat is a big one for that. Or for example, this person happened to remember that they had gone on a mission trip 20 years prior and they had gotten either exposed in that mission trip, or it might be a memory from the vaccinations, from the anti-parasite vaccinations that she had taken prior to going on the mission trip. So that might be what's going on here. The other thing that happens is oftentimes it'll show that you, let's just say, have hepatitis. And you're like, Lachelle, I've never had hepatitis. Now, there are two things that might be going on here. Number one is you might have been exposed to the hepatitis virus at some point in your life, and your immune system was strong enough that it actually was able to repress that, so it never was expressed in your body. And so therefore it's telling us that your body did a great job warding it off. Or the second thing that might be happening is that because there are 120,000 blueprint frequencies that we've identified, but there's still more. So they very well might have just picked up on the closest thing inside of the blueprint frequencies that cell and that vibration matched. So even though it has nothing to do with hepatitis C, it actually just picked the closest thing on the blueprint list that vibration matched with. And so again, this is why one of those things where I don't tell people to get too worked up on any of this. What I want to do is look for a trend, a series of reds that stay in the red over time that allow us to say, I wonder if I should go and get my blood drawn because my red blood cell count continues to stay in the red. And I'm wondering if that's anything that's going on. This can actually allow for you to see things inside of your body before they actually materialize as symptoms. But we really want to use this as an educational tool, another tool in our pocket to help us to have greater insight, therefore to have conversations with our physicians or functional medicine doctors or chiropractors or whoever it is that you see for your health. Okay, so that is something that I wanted to go through very quickly. Again, don't get stressed out about it. It's just more information. Okay, now if I go to back to this is really what I want you to concentrate on. So when you get the email, go ahead and click on the link that it sends you. Okay. Now, what this does, it allows for you to be able to get access to the music. So music is so amazing because what it does is it brings your body cells back into balance, specifically your emotions. It's going to balance your emotions. If you feel like your emotions are dictating your life or you feel like you're swinging from one end to the other, just listening to these tones, you guys, is going to make a world of difference. And when we balance our emotions, again, there's a trickle-down effect to balancing our overall body health. The optimization that the scanner does helps with my body health, but so does listening to these tones because it helps with the emotional component to it, which ultimately can lead to additional physical things that are going on inside of your body. Okay. So what these do is they're balancing harmonics. I tell people, go ahead and click on this button. And this is going to give you your music. Okay. Now, most people feel really, really good. Sometimes people feel calm when they listen to their music. Sometimes people get energized when they listen to their music. The really cool thing is, again, that it takes all of your data from your voice, your notes, your octaves, and all of those 2000 frequencies, and it's giving you a prescription for exactly what you need to handle your emotions, both conscious and repressed, in order to bring them back into balance. If you're finding that your emotions are out of control, again, this is going to help to prevent them from being trapped inside of your body. And those things that have been repressed, it allows for you, just by listening to music, to start to release in a safe and without you even realizing it way, to let yourself process those emotions and to let them go. It's so powerful. Since I've been doing this, I listen to my music. I suggest at least once a day, if not 4 times a day. I also suggest that you listen to it via either noise canceling headphones or ear pods or AirPods that you can put into your ears. And really, it doesn't matter if you listen to them on full volume or if you turn down the volume just enough that you can barely hear, because really it's the binaural resonance, is the binaural frequency that you feel the vibrations in your bones when you're listening it to a noise canceling headphones or AirPods, that is really does what it's supposed to do. And so oftentimes what I'll do is I'll put my AirPods in and I'll turn the volume down to barely where I can hear it. And then I just work all day and go about my business. And it's allowing myself to balance myself out without me having to really do anything. Whenever I'm upset, whenever I'm feeling out of control, whenever I'm feeling sad or lack of energy or anything like that, I go ahead and just play my music, and it's so powerful. Now, the nice part about having my own scanner is that I get to scan and optimize myself and update my music as often as I want to. So if that's something that you're interested in, we can absolutely chat about that when we talk. Okay. Now, the other thing that's really cool, and I would only just bring this up, but I can share this with you if you're interested when we meet, is I have a set of different homeopathies that I can program into my machine. And it literally tells me based on my real-time voice, which supplements I should be taking that are going to be needed at my body at the exact time, which is really great. And then again, it just gives me my most acute things. So the things that are way out of balance, like ones, twos, eights, and nines. And then it's also going to give me my chakra reports and my meridian reports. Now, if you're like me and you're a Christian and you've heard some things about chakras that kind of scare you, I want to just bring it back to a science perspective because I am a scientist. I'm a nurse anesthetist, former professor, would teach evidence-based practice. So I look at things by a science mindset. A chakra is really very simply compared to like the breaker box in your home. Okay. When my breaker box is tripped and my fuse blows, I no longer can get the energy from the breaker box to the lamp that's plugged into my living room. That's what a chakra does. So if your chakras are out of balance, then I can literally use my machine to get my chakras back into balance, which is basically like flipping the fuse box in my utility room. Okay. My meridians are very similar to the wires that go through the walls from the breaker box to the plug-in where my lamp is plugged in. If there's anything out of balance within those, then that also is going to impact the way that my cells work inside of my body. And so I can again use my machine to balance that out. And you can see that my meridians were out of balance, and then it optimized and it improved. And this is all in, going to allow me to have a greater cellular function. I find that I have more energy. I find that I'm more emotionally balanced. I find that I don't get sick as often. I find that mentally, physically, emotionally, I'm in a better position. And then again, this is really just going to show you what the things are out of whack the most. And then if I scroll down, I can actually see a 3D image of the things that are out of balance inside of my body. Again, whenever I'm looking at this, I'm looking for trends. So I wouldn't even pay attention to it unless you see it for 5 scans in a row. Okay. And that is an overview of all of the things that you will likely see when you get your report. So again, looking for the easy scan email, and you can glance at the reports that are the PDF attachments if you want to, or if you're really just wanting to get yourself back into balance, just simply by clicking on the link and listening to the music at least once, if not as many times during the day as you possibly can, you're going to start to notice that your body is going to perform better. Now, if you are interested in having a chat with me and going over your report a little bit more, or figuring out what next steps are, or you're really just wanting to understand a little bit more about the technology and the science behind it, I am more than happy to help you with that. So I'm going to grab my calendar link and I'm going to send that over to you, and we will continue to walk on this journey together so that we can get you in optimized health, physically, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of the things. So, all right, let me know if you need anything. And I'm so grateful that you chose to spend today with me. Bye.